Hi guys, welcome now to part 2 of this review that I'm bringing you today, which involves the Rose Techniques Quiet C and the MUSE HiFi, the East 6. Just quickly take you to the box, very simple, nothing unusual or stand out in terms of the packaging. Open it up, open the sleeve. Over here we brings the carrying case and the accessory and part of the accessories, and here it brings the other part of the accessories and the actual IM. The IM came over there. Inside of this box, like I said, it brings tips. It brings a nice selection of tips, although two of the sets are just very generic tips. These white ones in narrow bore, and then you have also these white ones within wide bore. So these ones are very generic, but it does bring a third set of tips, which is the kind of like lead short tips, all right, which are these ones here, and these ones are very nice. These ones are really nice. I use these ones, although ultimately then I opted for the KB07 just because I was able to get a slightly better fit. That was all. That's me in my ears. Okay, carrying case come over here, which I'll show to you in a second, and cable. I mean, the East 6, we still don't know exactly what the final price will be, but if it's around $70, I was expecting a slightly better cable. I'm not going to deny it. The cable is a little bit, okay. A nicer cable would definitely be deserving, especially because the IM itself does follow the MUSE HiFi philosophy, and I'll explain it to you now in a second. Let me just get this out of the way here. 1 second. Okay, so MUSE has always been known for being a brand that they have or they focus a lot on the aesthetic appearance of their products. I mean, the HiFi Power, which was a planar, had an unusual shape to it in terms of its appearance, but ultimately it actually looked good. I actually thought it looked good. The tuning is debatable, but it actually did look good. Then they had the ME1, which is a 1+1, which again had a very unusual appearance. Both of these two previously mentioned IMs, their biggest issue really was the tuning wasn't perhaps conducive with the price that was being asked. I mean, they were both at around $190 to $200 price bracket, so it's serious money, and that's what ultimately, I guess, dictated their not so successful take. Then they've also launched these two DACs, which is the M3 and the M32. One uses the ES9038, and the other one uses this TS4131. Again, these DAC dongles, in terms of their appearance, their aesthetics. Let me just quickly show it to you so you guys can have an idea. Okay, in terms of their aesthetics, very nice. I mean, very nice aesthetics. Nothing to be said there. Their price, again, is, I think, the issue that ultimately has dictated them not being as successful as they could possibly be, because the sound was actually quite good. And now the East 6 is again the same situation. It's got a very beautiful shell, very unusual in its shape and so on and form. Beautifully built. I mean, the quality of the build is phenomenal. Detachable nozzle, so it goes along the lines of the R2 E3 Mermaid, the Queen Liao's D4, the Simgot EA500. So it does have those characteristics that are now become very much common. But then that same pursuit of an aesthetic look has made the shape become a little bit awkward, and it's not an easy IM to fit. And I'll just grab here the Mermaid. Grab, let's say, the left side, and you'll understand what I'm saying now. Okay, so these are both the left sides. Okay, when you look at them like this, it looks fine. When you look at them like this, if you are savvy enough, you will see that this is off, put more to the center of the shell. So you got that bit of the shell there still. Thickness is not really the issue, okay? Faceplate, not really. The issue is this part of the shell here. It makes it a little bit complicated to fit properly. And in my particular case, for example, for me to get a good fit, okay, instead of it fitting like this and the cable going over the ear, and the cable doesn't go straight out to the top, it goes slightly forward, I actually have to fit it this way. I have to fit the IM in this way for me to get a good fit. Fair enough, maybe I've got some weird ears, but I have a feeling that there will be more people that will be having this problem, because it's not a tiny shell. If it was a tiny shell like maybe the Q5 shell, I mean, this is the Q5. Q5 is a baby compared to the MUSE, okay? It's a baby. So if it was the size, if it had this shape, it was the size of the Q5, maybe it wouldn't be an issue. But because it does have a reasonably acceptable size, and then it's got this unusual shape to it, I think it's going to be a bit of an issue for some people to actually fit it 100%. Other than that, once you do get a good fit, the sound is a good sound. I'm not going to say, yeah, no, the sound isn't good. The problem that will dictate the sound's performance is ultimately how the fit is done, which is very much the case in all IEMs, mind you, but in this one, it's just a something which is more prominent, okay? Now, let me just put away these other IEMs here before we carry on speaking a little bit more about the East 6. All right, okay, so I'm using here, this is the carrying case, by the way, which is very generic. It is what it is. These are the other nozzles, okay? These are the ones which have the red O-ring, and the ones I'm using, got the black O-ring. All right, so the cable I'm using is a Jazeer cable, by the way. Very nice cable. You can get this from Global Store. Costs about $28, $30. Really, really nice cable. It's a cable that comes with the majority of their products of Jazeer anyway. Sound. Again, it's an IM that has, depending on which nozzle you put it in, but it has ultimately the same style of sound as the Mermaid, to a certain extent as the X1, which means it's got a very nice, strong bass, very good. The bass in the MUSE, in the East 6 is phenomenal. It's not only got power, but it's got clarity, it's got resolution, it's got detail. It resolves complicated tracks, no problem. So the bass is definitely good, which is a testament of a quality driver. And you can actually see how good the bass is here. For example, when you compare it to the Tanstrom, it's very noticeable. The Tanstrom is a good driver. It does play well. It is well tuned. But there, the magic in the Tanstrom is the tuning. The tuning there is the magic that makes this relatively basic driver sound really good. Which, mind you, is not the only case. You have other cases of that also being the situation. Here you can you perceive that the driver is a good quality driver. The tuning is, it's not that it's badly done or not well done. The tuning is just done in a manner with the nozzles that will either showcase more specific parts of the frequency range or showcase less. Okay, so bass is not a problem in either of the nozzle settings. Okay, in either of the nozzle settings. Then with the black nozzle, which is the one that I got here, the pin again is more progressive and peaks around 3K, and then it kind of drops off in a very kind of harmony style, a little bit less energetic, but very nice, an extension past 10K. I liked using these BGVP like kind of whiteboard tips because it really, I find that these tips are the best match personally for me. Funny enough, these lectures which are not considered whiteboards, well, to a certain extent you could say, but they're not really considered whiteboards. These tips actually give a very similar sound profile. It's just the fit because of the exterior, the silicone here in the exterior is just a little bit softer than the KB ears, so it was breaking seal quicker. Okay, otherwise the sound is very similar. So with the black nozzle, as I said, with the red nozzle, it then has a pin again which is slightly earlier. It peaks at just around 2K-ish, with a little bit more of an energetic level there, and then kind of follows the same curve as the black nozzle. In my case particularly, and for some reason, that earlier peak just makes things, especially when I crank the volume, seem to be on the limit earlier. It's not that it's on the limit, because I've cranked the volume more and it doesn't distort or anything of the sort. It just, to my ears, the perception that I get is that things are a little bit more on the edge. Okay, and ultimately I am opted for the red, for the black nozzle because of that. Again, let me make it perfectly clear. There's not a very big difference between the two nozzles. The red nozzle will be a little bit more detailed, a little bit more forward in the vocals, especially female vocals will be a little bit more prominent, but it's not a day and night difference to the black one. Okay, what I did find was that the black one was slightly more smoother to my ears and more well, it was, I couldn't feel that edginess, okay, as I was feeling with the red nozzle. But ultimately it's very similar. Bass, everything, extension, everything is very, very similar. Okay, so Bass, mids, or for the most part, nothing to be said about them. Well done, well executed. Male vocals, probably the best ones, the ones that shine the most. Instruments, guitars, everything. It's very similar. I get a very similar situation as I get here to the Quiet C. Or in some situations, it's a little bit smoother than the Quiet C. On other occasions, the Quiet C is a little bit better. But ultimately very similar. Where you then see the difference more or being more prominent is in the upper mids and treble, where then the upper mids and treble here, they are detailed, but they just seem to somehow lack a little bit of finesse. It's not that they are, they just, and how, and again, where do you notice that more? Because if you listen to it by its own, it's fine. Where do you notice it? Well, you notice that it's got plenty of detail and it's nicely executed and so on. When you compare it, for example, to something like the Jazeer, because the Jazeer is a bass monster, so you notice that the mids, upper mids and treble are better executed than there, not forgetting that obviously you got a hell of a lot more bass. You notice that the mids, upper mids and treble, are also very nicely executed when you compare it to something like the Blonde. They got a nice amount of energy, they got a nice amount of detail, so fine. But then you do notice that it's lacking in the upper mids and treble in terms of that extra twinkly and sparkly when you compare it to something like the Q5 or when you compare it to the EA500. Definitely, that's very easy to pick up. Easier to pick up this difference than perhaps to pick up the difference between the MUSE and the Blonde, or the MUSE and the Jazeer. Going now quickly one by one, well, not quickly, but going now one by one, comparing the MUSE with the Kima Classic. They've got a very kind of a similar vibe in terms of the sound. Ultimately, I think I'd give the bass here, because it's just been tuned in a manner which has got a little bit more bass as opposed to that. I would give the mids and the treble there, because it's just got a little extra energy that is more polished, more twinkly and sparkly, more composed. It has that little extra finesse that we don't have over here, or that is lacking here. Please keep in mind the differences are minimal differences. Okay, this is not day and night differences. So that there also is $100. This year we're not sure. So depending on the price, what ultimately I think will be the deciding factor will be the value. Obviously, if you have a Kima, does it make sense to buy this? I don't think so. Compared to the EA500, same thing. The EA500, it's a better IM. It's hard for me to try and not say that, because that's just the reality. The EA500 is a better IM than this. End of story. It's a better IM. Even with the possible lack of bass, like some people say, even with the possible excessive energy of the mids and highs, everything there is just very composed. It's just very well executed. The only area where I think the MUSE keeps up, and maybe on occasions with certain songs exceeds the EA500, is in the bass. Okay? It's got a little bit more bass. That's it. But in terms of even the crispiness of the bass, okay, if that's the proper way of saying it, because you got such a nice mid, transition from mids to upper mids and treble, because it's so detailed, even that bass, it's just, honestly, it is really good. That's it. So I would say the EA500 is a better IM than the MUSE. Compared to the Zulenia, very different in their presentation, completely different. So these two are complements to each other. This is for bass and mids. That one there is for mids and highs. So good complements to each other, really good complements to each other. Compared to the Mermaid, very similar, very similar. Kind of the same situation as the Mermaid, as the Kima Classic. Very competent bass there as well. Probably as competent as over here. Very competent mids. I would say that the upper mids and treble there on occasion are just a little bit more polished, got a little bit more finesse than over here. But they trade blows. It depends very much on the song. There were some songs where I gave it to the MUSE. There were other songs I gave it to the Mermaid. For example, a song where Elephant from Carol Duboc, I gave it to the Mermaid. But then, where is it here? Analog from Soul Persona, I actually gave it to the MUSE. So You know, it's they trade blows. They're very equal compared to the XSL, the X1. In terms of bass and mids, I would say the XSL X1 is actually better. Okay, I would say actually better, but it doesn't have the same upper mids and treble that this has. So ultimately, this comes out on top because of that. Because the difference in the bass that one has is not enough to justify. Okay. You know, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you have that one, does it make sense to buy this one? No, not really. Same thing applies to the Mermaid. If you have the Z4, the Zulinia, yes, these are good. You know, that's a good compliment. You know, so you know, this is the reality of how it is. The Z300, very competent, very nice bass. Bass is very equal between the two of them. Maybe just a slight more. There's just a little something extra here in the bass. Mids very comparable, very comparable. I would say the extension here is just a smidge more than on the blonde. So ultimately the deciding factor here will be one of price. If you have that, does this make sense? No, not really. But if this costs around $50, I would say yes, this would probably be an interesting complement to have, or an interesting upgrade from that. And you know, it could be. Compared to the HE10 from MUSE. It's kind of the same situation as we have with the Musicality A500. This is a very competent IM, very competent. Great mids, great upper mids, great treble, complemented with really solid bass. Maybe not as a detail freak as the A500, but compared to the MUSE, yes, better technicalities in the MUSE. I mean, the soundstage on the MUSE is pretty decent. It's wide, but it's not very tall, not very deep. The imaging is acceptable as well, pretty decent. The detail retrieval, I guess, okay. A little bit better if I'm using the red nozzle, but the difference isn't really monumental. So technically, I mean, timbre and tonality is probably the standout technicality of the East 6. And so when I take that into account, one technicality which is really stand out, and I compare it to the HE10 where there's more technicalities which are really good, that one there ultimately comes out on top. It's just the way I feel, coupled to the fact that the fit is not a problem. The fit is really easy, you know. What I said for the HE10, I basically repeat to a certain extent for the Q5. The Q5, the HE10, and the Musicality, as I've said many times, they're very similar. This has got loads of detail. Mids, upper mids, and treble are phenomenal on this as well. So, you know, I guess if I want to be a little bit more fair, if I consider that an outright better IM, okay, and I wouldn't even consider this as a possible side grade, let's put it that way, I would consider this a possible side grade to this, because the bass here is better in terms of its quality and quantity than here. So the bass here is bad, but it's better. I mean, if I have to rate these in terms of the bass, these three, I would say that one has the best bass, slightly inferior, and this has got the least bass, the least quality bass. Okay, this has got the bass which is better than the Q5. Mids and treble, this one is better. So yeah, I guess these could be considered complements. Tension, I'm going to say what I said in part 1 of this review. The tension is a must because the price justifies it. Fine, bass wise, no comparison possible. This is far superior, but mids very equal. But then the detail that you have on top and the balance that you have on top there is phenomenal. So I would say that these two are good complements to each other, really good complements to each other. One makes sense having, even if you have the other already. OH300, very different. That's a very much a V-shaped IEM. Good bass. The only thing that it can outdo really solidly the East 6 is in the upper mids and treble. It does outdo it. But other than that, there's really nothing that I would say is an attractive feature of the OH300, although I like it a lot. So I would say that the MUSE is a better IM. The Jazeer, I would say in terms of sound, yes, this probably is an IM that would be making more sense. the problem with this and these two to be the more deciding factor ultimately is just going to be the fit, because if in sound, yes, we've got a little bit more detail there, but the balance is slightly better here, and if in the sound, yeah, we've got a lot more bass there and a bit more balance here, again, the fit will ultimately be the deciding factor between these three, in my opinion. And finally, the TKZK Oranos, I think it's a better IM once again. Goes in the same group as the EA500Y, because it's just got a very nicely put together sound. It just sounds very correct. Bass, mids, and treble all on the same level. They scale well. The TKZK, the TKZK Oranos was an IM that definitely went very much under the radar, very much. And it's not its fault. The fault is of the market, because when you have IMs being launched left, right, and center every day, it's normal that IMs will just be forgotten. And like I said earlier, this is a price range where you have to have something which is very, very standout. Okay, and there are IMs that actually are very good, which is the case of the Oranos, but for some reason or other, they were launched at a time where the other IMs got more traction, got more attention, and ultimately they get forgotten. Okay, so ultimately, in conclusion, with regards here to the MUSE, the East 6, it's a nicely built IM. It's a solid offering from MUSE that, in my opinion, has got two problems to overcome, which is, one, the shell, the fit will be very much something which is going to, I think, affect some people. And if you don't get a good fit, you're not going to be able to really get the magic out of it. Okay, sonically it is competent, it's very competent, but it doesn't really have sonically something which makes it stand out tremendously. Yes, it's got fantastic bass, fantastic mids, nobody's saying that, but the upper mids and treble are not on the same game, or not on the same level. Okay, and obviously this is a single DD, so that's normal. That will happen when you are asking a single driver to do everything. It's difficult, to strike that balance is not easy. So sonically it's fine, and then the other issue that it has, well, not issue, but other obstacle that it has to overcome is, this is a very competitive market. So depending on what price is it's given to it at the end, that will very much be the final deciding factor. Because, like I said earlier, if you have some of these IMs, I mean, if you have a Kima Classic, if you have the Mermaid, if you have even the XSL, the X1, if you have the TKZK Oranos, even the Z300, if you have those IMs, does it really truly make sense to get this? No, not really, no. But on the other hand, if you have this Lineal, yes, fine, that makes sense. If you have an OH300, yeah, I guess this could make sense. If you have a Tensium, yes, this could make sense to buy as a complement. Even the Q5 as well, maybe as a complement. But it's like I say, it's a very ungrateful segment of the market. Very competitive, and it's not easy to find the right reasons to justify an IM over another. Like as I said many times before, being a reviewer, especially in these days and ages, it's not easy. It is not easy. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. All right, take care.